Hi, SauceCon attendees. It's a pleasure to have you here. My name is Sahr, Marketing Manager at Autonomic Sauce Labs, and today I will be talking to you about how you can maximize the return on investment from your Salesforce testing. Now, before I dive into that, I just want to get into why, in today's day and age, low code and no code tools like Salesforce are important. 500 million more apps are to be developed by 2023. This is the same number of apps developed in the last 40 years. Now, individuals and organizations are finding intuitive ways to reduce the cost of developing new software tools to keep up with this digital transformation. And low code and no code tools are one of these crucial ways. 1.9%, that's the unemployment rate for software developers and IT professionals. There's a limited pool of talent in the market, and this puts added challenges on IT if labor shortages cannot be addressed and companies still have to meet their digital transformational goals. 40% of CIOs have reached the scale of their digital endeavors. Now, this is primarily also due to labor shortages. This is more than double the proportion of digitally transformed enterprises in 2018. But there's a stark demand for an increased ceiling. And lastly, 55% more software will be written in the next 5 years. I think this number speaks for itself. Just as low code and no code development are transforming the way we work, low code and no code testing tools are helping companies ensure that increased velocity of building software does not equate to reduced quality. Now, whether your team is building a Salesforce tool from scratch or enhancing an existing Salesforce tool, the marriage of low code and no code development with low and no code testing is vital to shipping with digital confidence. But before we get into the demo, why are we focusing so heavily on Salesforce? Well, in reality, Autonomic Sauce Labs is a tool that can be used on all SaaS applications, including other enterprise apps like SAP, ServiceNow, Workday, Microsoft Dynamics, Oracle, and etc. Salesforce is just too big to ignore. It's one of the biggest names in low code and no code development, thanks to its robust marketplace, pre-built native solutions, and its customizability. With more than 150,000 customers and 17 billion in revenue, Salesforce is more than just a CRM tool, which we'll get into in a little bit later. Being as big as Salesforce just opens you up to a new set of challenges that are passed down, unfortunately, to Salesforce customers, probably like yourself. Specific Salesforce testing challenges include citizen development versus citizen testing. Now, citizen developers can use Salesforce as a low-code application platform, but traditionally, test automation frameworks do not support low-code capabilities that can be used by citizen testers. This discrepancy is difficult to reconcile in the software development lifecycle and often ends up leading to more unintended costs. Number two, just the breadth and depth of Salesforce is just so vast. The magnitude of customizations and integrations possible with Salesforce make it harder for managing your test assets. Also, many critical workflows that the business depends on, like quote to cash, recruit to retire, procure to pay, etc., rely on the stability of these business structures. Challenge 3. Updates, and more updates. Salesforce deploys updates to its core product 3 times per year. That means integrating any third-party product from the App Exchange into a custom app requires exhaustive testing with complex test cases updated by Salesforce app owners. Additionally, organizations most likely push their own set of updates on a periodic basis. A frequent and constant stream of changes further increases the need for constant testing that outpaces manual and traditional efforts. Number 4, dynamic content and advanced features. Elements such as Salesforce forms are dynamic in nature, which makes it difficult for a Salesforce tester to depend on XPaths or selectors when writing their scripts. Due to this, testing an environment that doesn't have a static ID, name, class, or CSS attribute is a lot tougher since the elements can't be hard-coded. Furthermore, it's not easy to test advanced features like Visual Force, a UI that allows for the development of strong and reusable interfaces. Now, this can lead to unstable test scripts that have to be maintained on an ongoing basis. And lastly, Shadow DOM and pop-up windows. Elements available in the new Lightning UI like Shadow DOM, document object models, and pop-up windows are difficult to test in Selenium. Complex DOM structures using objects make it extremely difficult to validate with traditional testing frameworks. It's time to unleash the citizen tester. No-code, low-code testing tools empower citizen testers with unmatched workflow flexibility. And during this workshop, I'm going to show you how using Autonomic is just as simple as writing your tests in plain English statements, and how using our tool, you can autonomously identify objects and self-heal them. And lastly, generate regulatory compliant reports in just minutes. Autonomic also works on all the Salesforce clouds, including marketing, commerce, service, sales. You can also use Autonomic for things like MuleSoft, Velocity, Apex, and their new UIs like the Salesforce Lightning UI. Using Autonomic Sauce Labs, you can write your test case, generate test data, and produce test scripts all in the Codeless Studio. You can also execute your test assets across multiple platforms, browsers, and conduct continuous testing within a few clicks. Finally, you can analyze across all your test assets, conduct self-healing, change impact, and pattern matching. One of the biggest advantages when it comes to maximizing your Salesforce testing with Autonomic is that any user can use the Codeless Studio. Whether you're a business analyst, functional tester, QA engineer, or an SDEV, Autonomic can be useful for you. It also plugs into any existing environment, and it plugs into common CI/CD tools. Ready to see how you can take your Salesforce testing to the next level? Let's dive into the demo. Now here's an example of a test case that we're going to upload into the Autonomic software. It's written in a regular Excel file and in plain English statements. As you can see here, the objective that we're trying to achieve is for the user to be able to use Salesforce to create a new lead, save it, convert that lead into an opportunity, associate it with an account, and create a new case for the contact. There's no use of any keywords, and certain steps can be grouped into one. On step 2, for example, we are telling the software to enter username, enter password, and click on login, all within the same step. Now this test case is only 19 steps, but you can imagine how much longer test cases can become and how many other test cases are needed when you're trying to test and maintain critical workflows and end-to-end processes. With Autonomic, you're able to include your test data within your test cases or have a completely different test data file. In this case, we're using a separate test data file. To protect data privacy and to expedite different forms of testing, whether it's load testing, regression testing, user acceptance testing, etc., we're able to generate synthetic test data for these purposes. Under the company column, for example, we're able to tell the software to use an expression to generate new names of companies for our testing purposes. All right, let's jump into the Autonomic project dashboard and create a new project. Here is where I'm going to upload the test case and upload the test data file. Once again, if the test data is in the test case file, you can just skip this step. As soon as you hit the submit button, your job as a tester is done. Autonomic starts to execute each step in the Codeless Studio. You are able to click on each step and expand it to see exactly what the software is doing during the process. As you can see here, there's a green box around the username. field, and the information being used is the test data provided in the test case. On this screen, I'm able to see that the software has clicked on the lead tab in Salesforce. On the next page, I'm able to see that it's clicked on the new button. What's interesting here is that the artificial intelligence and machine learning functionality has found two buttons called new. It gives us the screenshots of the two buttons and a fuzzy logic score that tells us the probability that it thinks that this is the button we're referring to. If you remember the simple expressions that we added to the test data file, you'll see an example of how the synthetic data is generated here. We're able to see that in the company field, the expression that we provided in the test data under company is now being written as a randomized company name. Hooray! All 19 steps are completed and executed in the Autonomic Codeless Studio. I'm going to add this test case to a new test suite. Now that this test suite can be added to any future end-to-end test that I aim to write just by selecting it. I can now use the test suite to schedule concurrent test executions. It allows me to select the platform and the browser. In this case, I would like to test Linux and Chrome. And within a click of a button, I'm able to schedule this test suite to be executed. Here it is in action. You can see that the execution has been successful. When I head into the reports, I'm able to download the detailed HTML report. As you can see here, it gives me a very detailed analysis of the test execution with the time of execution, platform, browser, date, test data used, and screenshots. This report can be downloaded, stored, and used for regulatory and compliance purposes. We just covered how Autonomic helps you plan and execute all of your test assets to maximize your Salesforce testing ROI. Now, let's cover analysis and change management. One of the most exciting features that Autonomic offers is the ability to auto-maintain and self-heal scripts in response to object, XPath, or visual locator changes, or the addition of new UI elements changes that would typically break scripts and require an automation engineer to manually fix the issues. But Sauce Lab's self-healing capabilities autonomously identifies the impact of application changes and heals the object repository with the latest object information, all without any manual intervention. Let's take a look at self-healing in action. We've created a sample application that simulates UI changes, since we can't actually change the Salesforce source code to modify UI elements, and we'll make some changes that will affect the corresponding XPaths in our script. The steps for our test case are to enter a first name, enter an email, and then enter a password. So we'll generate our script, then download the script to our IDE for later comparison. We're also going to change the attribution on the next build for password. So notice here that the attribution is currently PWD. We'll modify the attributes that part of the password's XPath, and we'll add the element called last name between the first name and the email elements, which will change the email's element location on the screen. We'll commit and push the update load source code to the repository, and when we refresh our app, we can see that the new deployment now has a last name field. The password attribute has also been changed behind the scenes. As soon as the new deployment is built, Sauce Labs maintenance feature and AI engine were invoked through the Jenkins plugin, and the script is now being automatically updated to reflect the locators and XPaths. We'll download the revised script to the IDE, then compare it against the original script to see what automated changes the self-healing feature implemented. Our original scripts show that the XPath for email contains an index of 2 in a div, and the XPath for password contains type equals password. The XPath for email in the revised script now contains an index of 3 in a div, and the XPath for password now contains an index of 4, and no longer contains type equals password. Let's look at another example that deals with changes to a visual label in our application. Our sample application has 2 test cases, both of which refer to a label named That's Fine, which we can see here in our app. We'll change the label from That's Fine to first name, then commit and push the source code to the repository. We'll switch back to our app, and we can see that our new deployment has updated That's Fine to first name. We'll initiate the build, and the self-healing feature is once again invoked through the Jenkins plugin. Sauce Labs has now identified the impact of the label change across all our affected test cases and displays a message showing where the error occurred. We can drill down in the test case steps and hover over the error indicator to get a detailed message about what caused the error. We can begin to heal all the test cases by clicking the Smart Maintenance link and reviewing the Smart Maintenance proposals. We'll approve the proposed changes, and when we return to our test case, we can see that they're being automatically healed with the correct label. We can see how AutonomIQ helps to plan, execute, and analyze all of your test assets, and how it works from any user in any existing environment using any CI/CD tool. Thanks for attending our workshop today, and to learn more, feel free to visit us at www.saucelabs.com. Stay well and be safe.